and reality bites. All right, so I have a question for you. Are you as tired as we are of all the crazy stuff we're hearing in the presidential campaign? Tonight, we're going to put aside the anchor desk and we're going to look at some of the most extreme examples of just that. We're trying to break down the barrier here and involve you a little bit more. This crazy talk, we're going to sort through the noise. We're going to tell you what's true and, frankly, what is BS. And we'll tell you what you can do to put an end to the silly season, the silly side of this race for the White House. So let's start with an obvious example now, and one of the most recent. Here's Missouri Congressman Todd Akin.
It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down. But let's assume that maybe that didn't work or something. You know, I think there should be some punishment, but the punishment ought to be on the rapist and not attacking the child.
Ana Navarro, Omar Ali, they're both here. Ana's a Republican strategist. Omar is an associate professor at the University of North Carolina, among many other titles. So we'll go to Ana first. And Ana, because you're a woman, so tell us, legitimate, I mean, what is this?
It's legitimately stupid, Don. Listen, I don't think the comments made by Congressman Todd Akin are silly. I think they're ignorant. I think they're stupid, and I think they have no place and no room in today's society. And you've seen a very strong reaction. That's why you saw the reaction you've seen from so many leaders in the Republican Party saying, look, we condemn these words. We don't think this is right, and we're not going to accept it. We don't want any part of it. That's why he's not here now, facing a hurricane as the rest of us are.
Yeah, but Omar, he's still in the race, and he still could win.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's happening is that more and more people are rejecting this kind of silliness, as you described. And that's why, you have so many people leaving basically not just the Republican and Democratic Party, but basically the electoral system as a whole. What I think is important is that independents, which are the fastest growing group of American voters right now, really stay in and assert their voices, because it's really the future that's important in terms of changing the political culture. Because without a change in the political culture, we're just going to keep going down this road of silliness.
Okay, so I'm going to get through a number of these. Next, this one, he says it was a joke, but whatever it was, we're not debating that, whatever it is. But why did Mitt Romney even go there yesterday? Listen.
Now, I love being home in this place where Ann and I were raised, where both of us were born. Ann was born at Henry Ford Hospital. I was born at Harper Hospital. No one's ever asked to see my birth certificate. They know that this is the place that we were born and raised.
Okay, Anna, as I said, we're not going to debate why he said it, but the president has shown his birth certificate. In a word, Anna, where was the president born?
The United States of America, in Hawaii.
All right. Omar?
As far as we all know, USA.
All right. Good. That's it. It wasn't one word, but you know what I meant. I just wanted you to give it to me because I'm so sick.
Don,
sick of debating this.
Don, the problem is some people aren't funny, and they don't know it. So I think Mitt Romney should stick to the serious issues.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is people were saying, oh, well, when people said, why would he say something like that? It was uncalled for. Many people saw it as partisan. But the reason people said that is because he's trying to focus, he and Paul Ryan are trying to focus on the economy, they say, and by bringing this up, that changes the focus. And that was a headline from yesterday and this weekend, and not the focus on the economy. But I want to say, we're not just calling out Republicans now. I want you to check out this Obama Super PAC ad. Listen.
When Mitt Romney and Bain closed the plant, I lost my health care. And my family lost their health care. And a short time after that, my wife became ill. I don't know how long she was sick. And I think maybe she didn't say anything because she knew that we couldn't afford the insurance. And then one day she became ill, and I took her up to the Jackson County Hospital and admitted her for pneumonia, and that's when they found the cancer. And by then it was stage 4. There was nothing they could do for her.
So this is basically implying that Mitt Romney's business practices somehow caused this woman's cancer death. Omar, truth or dare, or is it just outrageous?
I mean, look, all of these things are really silly claims. I don't even want to really get into the details of it because in some ways that's feeding into this game of tit for tat that the Democratic and Republican parties play with each other to basically keep the American people divided. And that's not the way that we should be going forward. So in some ways, whatever the case may be, let's look at the larger issue, which is the issue of the partisanship in America and what can be done now about that. And something that can be done is that President Obama could come out very strongly in favor of nonpartisan reforms and reconnect to independence the way that he did in 2008 and which won him the presidency.
And we're going to talk more about that in our next segment, so just stand by, Omar, and you bring up a very good point. That's a very legitimate point. Anna, what do you say to that?
Like I say to that ad, it was egregiously inaccurate. It was really outrageous. It played with people's emotions. And I think what you saw in that ad is the influence of super PACs. This was a super PAC made ad, and super PACs give candidates the ability to deny having any association. But we know in truth that these are super PACs that support a specific candidate. A candidate can condemn an ad. They cannot coordinate with a super PAC, but they can certainly say publicly, we don't want that ad playing. I wish President Obama had had the leadership and character to say that.
And we can say that Mitt Romney did not cause this woman's cancer death. So if anyone implies that or says that Mitt Romney did, that is not true. It's BS. Okay, so how's this for crazy? An all-out civil war if President Obama is reelected. That's what one judge says, BS or not. We're talking politics tonight, crazy talk in politics, and we're going to cut through some of the craziness, why there's so much of it, and what you can do about it. So how's this for stoking the flames of fear and division? A Texas judge, the man in charge of his county's emergency planning committee, in fact says a civil war could erupt if President Obama gets reelected. Roll it.
He's going to try to hand over the sovereignty of the United States to the UN. Okay, what's going to happen when that happens? I'm thinking worst case scenario.
Right,
okay?
I understand.
Civil unrest, civil disobedience, civil war, maybe. I mean, we're not talking just a few riots here and demonstrations. We're talking Lexington, Concord, take up arms and get rid of the guy.
Anna, quickly, let's just, yes or no, is President Obama ever going to turn control of the U.S. over to the UN, ever?
Don, you want a quick answer to that one? Baker Act him. He is, you know, he should be committed. That is just crazy talk, but you know, crazy doesn't have a party, honey. There's crazies on the Democrat and crazy on the Republican side.
Omar, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's a silly claim, and it's just ridiculous.
All right. So listen, here's a twofer. Again, and so we said we're not just picking on Republicans, this is everyone. Now from Obama campaign advisor Stephanie Cutter. First, she accused Mitt Romney of lying about his tenure at Bain Capital. Here it is.
Either Mitt Romney, through his own words and his own signature, was misrepresenting his position at Bain to the SEC, which is a felony, or he was misrepresenting his position at Bain to the American people to avoid responsibility for some of the consequences of his investments.
Omar, just the other day, the president told reporters no one on his team had accused Romney of being a felon. You say what to that?
No, I mean, again, you know, these are things that are being done in order to strike fear and to demonize, which is why, in some ways, many people are just saying enough already.
Yep.
So, silliness.
Anna?
Beyond the pale, irresponsible, slanderous.
All right. Number two, Cutter comparing President Obama's job creation numbers to President Reagan's. Roll it.
And over the past, 27 months, we've created 4.5 million private sector jobs. That's more jobs than in the Bush recovery, in the Reagan recovery.
That was her on MSNBC on Morning Joe. Right-wing blogs went crazy over this one, but here are the facts. No matter how you crunch the numbers, no matter what metrics you use, that statement is untrue. Reagan created more than 7 million jobs during his recovery. Obama, more than 4 million so far. So, Anna, as President George W. Bush used to say, that's some fuzzy math. President one. President Bush.
I would tell you that's beyond fuzzy math. You know, I think there Ms. Cutter is spinning like a yo-yo.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Omar, with this and with other things, I'm wondering if people ever think that no one is going to check on this. And these are people who are smart. At least they are book smart. So Omar, what is going on here? Why are they doing it, and what is the solution?
Well, okay, so basically we have a system that thrives on the winner-take-all, and it's not a very democratic system, small d, right? So basically, in that kind of a bipartisan system where you're trying to win it, you do it at all cost. And that means basically throwing around numbers that may or may not be true. And in some ways, if they just repeat the numbers enough, some people, some segment of the population will believe that. The solution really is, in terms of going beyond this, is breaking up the control that parties have over the political process and increasing the participation of Americans. And that's where, in some ways, independents come in. The independents are really the hope of the future in America. 42% of Americans now self-identify as independent. And in North Carolina, where I am, 2 out of 3 new registered voters are registering as unaffiliated. And the reason why is because partisanship is broadly recognized amongst all Americans as the problem in America. We have brilliant solutions to things, but they don't get all the way to, in some ways, in terms of policy, because they're blocked for partisan reasons by special interests, etc. In fact, there's a great new book I just want to mention, Jacqueline Salet's Independent Rising, which details in some ways the rise of independence, which continues to be sort of related to as sort of a side thing in American politics. It's fundamental now, and it's a growing phenomena in America.
And Omar and Anna, I've heard this a number of times, and this whole thing that we're doing now sort of came about when I was on vacation recently with a big group, and we were all sitting out around at dinner, and people were saying, well, you know, I'm conservative on this, I'm liberal on this, I feel one way about this, another way about that, but I don't feel like I identify with either with Democrats or Republicans, because most of the time it's just bickering. So what happens? And independents, and I'm just being honest, Omar, they don't feel that independents have the power to really make that big a difference here. Anna, I know that you are a Republican strategist, but I'm sure you've heard that before, and you understand the disconnect here.
But I think that's completely wrong, and you should tell your independent friends. In fact, they are the most powerful voters in America right now, because the country is so polarized that there's a very decided electorate on both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, and we're all fighting over a very small portion of independent voters who can make or break the election in the very important battleground states. And you know why they do this? You know why they do the silly ads? Because they can, Don, because they can, because there's no penalty to pay. And I think that until voters, really get turned off, really start saying no more, look, we're not going to take it, we're going to be educated about what the truth is, I think, they're going to continue doing it. So it's up to the voters. There is power in voting, there is power in democracy, and we got to retake it back.
Yep, and in the meantime, the people in the middle, the voters, are saying, we don't care about whose is bigger, who created more jobs, whatever. We just want a job, and we want to be able to pay our bills. We got to run. We're out of time. Omar, we're going to have you guys back, and Omar, definitely will have you back. You're one of our original independents. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don.
One thing we can agree on for sure, the political bickering needs to go. So here's an idea for you. No more Republicans and no more Democrats. How about that? That's next.